The thug had no idea he was about to ruin the most important bowl of kimchi stew on earth. Kangwoo had just returned after 10,000 years in hell, where he survived by eating disgusting demon flesh and fighting monsters every single day. So when he finally sat down in a normal restaurant and tasted warm human food again, it felt like he had escaped the abyss for real. But then a group of arrogant thugs stormed in and started harassing Seola and her mother right in front of him. At first, Kangwoo ignored them. After ruling hell itself, trash like this was not even worth his attention. But then one of them made the worst mistake possible. He touched Kangwoo's food. The room went silent, and Kangwoo slowly raised his head. To everyone else, he looked like a harmless civilian. But the truth was completely different. This man had spent 10,000 years devouring demons, climbing from the lowest pit of hell to the very top, and forcing even the 7 princes to bow before him. So when the thug tried to act tough, Kangwoo released only a tiny piece of his real pressure. The air turned heavy. The thug stopped laughing. And in that moment, he finally realized he was not standing in front of a normal man. He was standing in front of the monster who ruled hell itself. But the craziest part is that Kangwoo did not come back to Earth for revenge, fame, or power. He only wanted food, peace, and a normal life. And when the first kind woman he met gave him that warmth, Kangwoo looked at Seola and immediately asked her to marry him. So how did this starving, terrifying, completely unhinged man become the ruler of hell, and why is the strongest demon alive pretending to be harmless on Earth? To understand that, we have to go back to the beginning. Molten lava bubbles and spits against jagged, obsidian cliffs in a world that feels like a literal furnace. This is the 9 Hells, a place where the concept of home is a distant, impossible dream. The narrator reveals that the very deepest layer of this abyss is a gathering ground for only the most elite, terrifying monsters. It's the kind of environment where the air itself probably burns your throat with every single breath. Seriously, if this is the starting point, imagine how bad things are going to get. A dark, eclipsed sun hangs over the jagged, chain-linked peaks of the Hell of 9 skies. In this pit of eternal war, there isn't a single moment of peace or quiet for anyone involved. A violent explosion of white light rips through the battlefield, proving that the struggle for the title of strongest is an endless, bloody loop. You have to wonder what kind of mind survives this cycle of violence day after day without breaking. It's pure, unadulterated chaos, and honestly, it's terrifying to think about who actually comes out on top here. A winged demon with wild red hair and a desperate grin screams as he flies directly into a massive, glowing golden fist. He's trying to challenge the hierarchy, throwing a punch that looks like it could level a mountain. But the second they collide, the entire frame is swallowed by a jagged, white shockwave that looks like a literal crack in reality. The power difference is so lopsided it's almost funny if it weren't so brutal. That isn't just a defeat, it's a total atmospheric erasure. You can almost feel the wind being knocked out of him from here. A series of massive, circular shockwaves blast through the crimson sky as the demon is sent hurtling toward the ground like a broken toy. The impact is so sheer that the surrounding cliffs begin to crumble, raining down boulders into the abyss below. A thick, suffocating cloud of dust and debris billows up, completely masking the destruction at the center of the crater. Is there even anything left of him after a hit like that? The dust is settling, but the tension is only getting higher, because if that was just one hit, what happens when things actually get serious? A blinding flash of white heat erupts from the center of the crater, followed by a mountain of suffocating dust that rolls across the volcanic floor. As the haze slowly begins to part, a massive, muscular silhouette stands tall, completely unaffected by the world-ending impact we just witnessed. It's the demon boss, Balak, and honestly, he looks bored. He starts laughing, mocking Hanoel by claiming that these famous punches from the 9th hell barely even tickle. Talk about a massive ego, this guy really thinks he's untouchable, but we all know that pride always comes right before the fall. The screen literally shakes as a jagged, purple title card slams onto the frame, officially introducing the great demon Balak. He looms over Hanoel with his massive white horns and glowing yellow eyes, looking down at our protagonist like he's nothing more than a stray bug. He lets out a huff of pure contempt, telling Hanoel that he's all talk and no bite. Seriously, the level of arrogance here is off the charts. Giving yourself a grand introduction while standing in the middle of a literal hellscape is the ultimate flex, but it's making me really want to see Hanoel wipe that smirk off his face. Balak finally stops talking and lunges forward with a roar, his fist glowing like a dying star. The two warriors collide in a spray of fire and jagged rock that sends shockwaves screaming through the entire valley. The sheer force of the impact turns the horizon into a blurry mess of orange and white light as explosions ripple outward one after another. This isn't just a martial arts match anymore, it's a literal natural disaster unfolding in real time. You have to wonder if the ground beneath them is even going to exist by the time this exchange is over. Intense streaks of energy arc through the air as Hanoel finally stops playing defense and leans into the strike. The absolute arrogance on Balak's face starts to melt, replaced by a look of genuine, wide-eyed shock as the pressure shifts against him. A final, massive white-hot blast erupts, tearing through the demon's guard and sending jagged shrapnel flying in every single direction. It's the moment of truth. The great demon has officially bitten off more than he can chew. I can't look away now, because that split second of panic in Balak's eyes. That's where the real fun begins. A blinding white-hot explosion erupts at the point of impact, completely swallowing the battlefield in a roar of pure energy. The massive Demon King, who was just looking down on Hanyoel, gets blasted backward with enough force to shatter the surrounding landscape. Even the giant rock golem nearby gets caught in the shockwave, its stone limbs disintegrating into fine powder instantly. Honestly, watching a boss who was acting like a god get tossed around like a ragdoll is the kind of karma we love to see. But the real question is, how is Hanyoel moving this fast without breaking a sweat? The Demon King crashes into the jagged terrain, his massive weight carving a path of destruction through the volcanic rock. Before he can even process the pain, Hanyoel is already on top of him, raining down strikes that sound like thunderclaps. We see a close-up of Hanyoel's arm, where glowing yellow veins of mana are pulsing with an intensity that looks like it's about to boil his skin. It's a terrifying display of raw power that makes you wonder if Hanyoel is even human anymore. The pressure is so heavy that the very air seems to be vibrating with the intent to kill. Hanyoel pulls back his arm, his fist glowing with a concentrated, spiraling energy that looks like a miniature star. He slams it down into the Demon King's chest, creating a massive crater that sends a pillar of fire and debris straight into the dark sky. When the dust finally begins to settle, we see the once mighty, great demon, pinned face down in the dirt, looking completely broken. Seeing that yellow eye staring out from the rubble, wide with genuine fear, really drives home how much the tables have turned. He's gone from the apex predator to just another victim in Hanyoel's path. The surrounding minions stand there frozen, their tiny demonic eyes bulging out as they watch their invincible leader get humiliated in public. Feeling the weight of their stares, the Demon King loses it, screaming that these are nothing but petty tricks to hide his own growing desperation. He starts grabbing his own soldiers, crushing them in his hands and throwing them around just to vent his pathetic rage. It's a total meltdown, and honestly, if you have to start murdering your own army to feel powerful, you've already lost the fight. But now that he's cornered and desperate, what kind of suicidal trump card is he going to pull? The Demon King's face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage as he stares down his opponent. He reaches out and snaps up one of his own loyal soldiers, crushing the poor soul's skull without a second thought. It's a chilling sight, showing that he's completely abandoned his role as a leader just to vent his frustration. Honestly, seeing a boss turn on his own people is the ultimate sign that he's officially hit the panic button. A massive pillar of blinding golden light erupts from the center of the battlefield, tearing the sky apart. The ground can't even hold the pressure anymore as the energy expands, vaporizing everything in its path. This isn't just an attack, it's a total environmental wipeout meant to leave nothing left alive. You have to wonder, is Hanyoel even capable of standing his ground against a literal natural disaster like this? The smoke clears just enough to reveal the Demon King's glowing horns through the haze. Suddenly, the earth splits wide open, and rivers of molten lava begin to pour out of the cracks like the world itself is bleeding. The sheer scale of the destruction is terrifying, turning the entire arena into a literal hellscape. If the heat doesn't kill you, the collapsing ground definitely will, and there's nowhere left to run. Through the rising steam, the Demon King emerges, but he's not the same monster we saw just a minute ago. He's fully transformed, boasting massive black wings and hands that are literally encased in living, roaring flames. He looks less like a warrior now and more like an ancient god of destruction. It's a classic, final boss, second phase, and you can just feel the weight of his presence through the screen. The Demon King finally speaks, his voice dripping with cold malice as he declares that playtime is over. Before the words even finish hanging in the air, he vanishes, leaving behind a sonic boom that shatters the nearby rocks. He's moving with a speed that defies his massive size, becoming a blur of heat and violence. This is the kind of momentum that ends a fight in a single second if you blink. A massive fiery fist slams into the ground with the force of a falling meteor, sending shockwaves through the lava-soaked earth. The sound is a deafening roar that drowns out everything else as the Demon King lets out a primal scream of victory. He's putting every ounce of his new power into this offensive, determined to end this once and for all. But even with all this new strength, can he actually land a clean hit on a man who has conquered hell itself? The Demon King's face is a mask of pure, unbridled rage as his jaw unhinges in a world-shaking roar. He's putting every remaining drop of his demonic essence into a final, desperate declaration, screaming that he is the strongest entity in the entire Hell of Nine Skies. It's a terrifying display of power, a last-ditch effort to reclaim the fear he thinks he's owed. Honestly, the more they scream about being the strongest, the more you know they're absolutely terrified of what's coming next. A fist cloaked in swirling, molten energy and shadowy malice slams directly into the Demon King's skull with the force of a collapsing mountain. Hanyoel doesn't waste a single breath on a comeback. He simply delivers a strike so heavy it literally rewrites the landscape of the battlefield. The impact is so violent that the Demon King's massive frame is sent spiraling backward, his previous, strongest, title being punched right out of his head. That's what we call a permanent reality check. No words needed, just pure, overwhelming dominance. The Demon King's massive, armored body tumbles through the air before slamming into the volcanic earth with a sickening thud. He hits the ground so hard that a massive crater spiderwebs out from beneath him, sending shards of obsidian and sprays of lava flying in every direction. The high and mighty ruler of hell is now just a heap of broken armor and bruised ego, struggling to even breathe. It's crazy how fast that strongest becomes just another body in the dirt when the real MC shows up. The screen fades to a cold, oppressive black as cryptic text begins to flicker, speaking of a legend that there would never be an eternal winner. Then, the title drops like a heavy weight, player who returned 10,000 years later, etched in blood-red letters that seem to pulse with a life of their own. This isn't just a name, it's a warning of the sheer, soul-crushing time Hanwha spent becoming the monster he is today. Can you even imagine the kind of mental state someone is in after 10,000 years of non-stop slaughter? A tight close-up reveals the Demon King's yellow eyes trembling with a level of fear he's likely never felt in his entire immortal life. He's looking up at the towering shadow of Hanwha, realizing that the man standing over him isn't just a warrior, he's something far more ancient and far more terrifying. The silence is deafening, and you can practically taste the Demon King's desperation as he realizes his life is now entirely in the hands of a man who has forgotten the meaning of mercy. But now that the king is broken, what exactly is Hanwha's next move in this hellish game? A long red carpet stretches toward a throne carved from the massive, bleached skull of some ancient titan. Hanwha walks down the center of the hall, his silhouette small but heavy against the scale of the room. This is the Demon King's throne room, the absolute heart of the volcanic realm. It's supposed to be a place of terror, but right now, it just feels like a tomb. Purple flames erupt from Hanwha's shadow, casting a haunting glow over the bone-white throne. A title appears over him, calling him the apex of all demons. He stands there, not as a hero who survived, but as the new peak of the food chain. Honestly, seeing a human carry a title that sounds like it belongs to a literal god of death is enough to give anyone chills. The red-skinned minotaur, the supposed king, is slumped on the floor in a pathetic, kneeling position. His massive frame is trembling, and he's clutching his head as if he can't handle the pressure of the air in the room. The silence is absolute. It's a total social execution. The king is now nothing more than a broken servant waiting for a sentence. Dark, jagged energy flares around Hanwha, causing the Minotaur's eyes to widen in genuine, soul-shaking terror. He stammers out the name of the force he's witnessing, the power of gluttony. This is the moment the villain realizes he didn't just lose a fight, he's looking at the thing that's going to erase him from existence. Visions of demonic figures being dragged down into a churning, purple abyss flicker through the air. This is the same power that brought down the 7 princes of hell, entities so powerful they couldn't even kill each other, so Hanwha just consumed them instead. It's the ultimate endgame ability. The Demon King is furious, but he's mostly just realizes he's already dead. Sharp, vertical streaks of purple light rain down into a void of pure blackness. The atmosphere is suffocating, and the tension is at a literal breaking point. Hanwha is about to pull the trigger on a power that changed the history of hell itself. But if he uses this gluttony now, what will be left of the man he used to be when the hunger is finally satisfied? The massive Minotaur freezes as the giant word, defeated, looms over his broken pride. After 10 millennia of staring at the same suffocating volcanic horizon, Hanwha is officially done playing the role of the underworld's conqueror. He's spent 10,000 years in this literal hellhole, and you can see the exhaustion in every line of his armor as he looks at the sky. Honestly, imagine looking at the same red horizon for 10,000 years. It's enough to make anyone lose their mind, and the crazy part is, he's only just getting started. Purple energy surges through Hanwha's armored forearm like a living circuit of dark lightning. He screams that for him to truly have it all, there actually has to be something worth having in this void besides more blood and ash. His face contorts into a mask of pure, desperate hunger, showing a side of him that's arguably more monster than man. Look at that expression. That's the face of a guy who has won every battle but still feels like he has absolutely nothing to show for it. The scene washes out into a blinding white void as a voice mockingly addresses him as Demon King Okongwu. The unseen speaker asks if he's hungry, offering a gift from his loyal servants as if they're serving a king at a royal banquet. Even the voice acknowledges that after devouring tens of thousands of demons, this one little offering won't be nearly enough to satisfy him. It's so condescending. They're treating him like a starving animal while calling him king to his face. A red, muscular hand lifts a polished silver lid to reveal the feast prepared for the victor. Underneath sits the decapitated, gray, and pulsating head of Folklore, dripping with blue slime and staring back with a single, lifeless yellow eye. The loyalty of these servants is showcased through this gruesome, tentacled mess that they expect him to enjoy. Man, that is beyond disgusting. If this is what being a king looks like in hell, I think I'll pass on the crown. Hanwha stares at the rotting, tentacled head, his soul recoiling at the thought of consuming something so hideous and awful. He suddenly snaps, his purple aura exploding with enough force to shatter the atmosphere as he screams his true, hidden desire. The screen fades into a white-hot flash as he bellows about what he really wants at the top of his lungs. But here's the million-dollar question. In a world of monsters and rot, is there anything left for him that isn't ugly? What is he actually chasing after all this time? A steaming, vibrant bowl of kimchi jjigae glows with an almost divine, shimmering light. After all that blood and sulfur, Han-Oh-El isn't thinking about his new kingdom, he's hallucinating his favorite comfort food. He's slumped over on a red carpet, his head hanging low as he whispers the name of the stew over and over like a broken record. The crazy part? The surviving demons are so utterly terrified that they start screaming, kimchi jjigae, right back at him, thinking it's some forbidden, high-level destruction spell. I can't help but laugh. Imagine being a demon soldier and genuinely believing a spicy tofu soup is the name of the dark god who's about to erase your existence. It's peak comedy in the middle of a literal massacre. A disgusting, pixelated mess of gore is presented on a silver platter as a tribute. The demons are desperately trying to serve their new king, but their concept of a gourmet meal is just raw innards and whatever body parts are left on the floor. Han-Oh-El looks like his soul is leaving his body, realizing that in this godforsaken realm, the very concept of food doesn't exist. To these monsters, feasting is just a barbaric ritual performed on the losers of a fight. They actually think his entertainment was the act of slaughtering the 7 princes of hell. It's a brutal reality check. Han-Oh-El is mourning the loss of his humanity, while his new subordinates are cheering for a monster that doesn't actually exist. Honestly, how do you even explain brunch to a creature that only eats spite and organs? Han-Oh-El finally snaps, his face contorting into a hilarious expression of pure geek rage as he screams that he just wants to read novels and manhwa. He's completely done with the Dark Lord persona and just wants his old, comfortable life back. This revelation absolutely destroys the Demon King's spirit. The massive, horned minotaur starts bawling his eyes out, slamming his fist down in shame and begging Han-Oh-El to kill him for his poor performance. It's wild to see the most feared boss in the realm reduced to a sobbing mess because he can't find a bookstore in a volcano. Han-Oh-El is left standing there in a silent, awkward silhouette, realizing that even after conquering everything, he's still totally alone in his desires. But seriously, if he can't find a way back, is he really going to try and build a library in the middle of hell? What's the next step for a king who has everything but the one thing he actually wants? Han-Oh-El stands in a daze, silhouetted against a shimmering purple light. He whispers about the one person he truly loved, looking like a man who's lost everything despite winning the war. It's a heavy moment, seeing a conqueror so completely broken by a single memory of his past life. The sharp click of high heels echoes across the battlefield as a long dress trails behind. The crowd of demons goes absolutely wild because Lilith, the queen of succubus, is finally making her grand entrance. You'd think the queen of desire would be a knockout, but you're forgetting this is the literal heart of hell. A purple-skinned monster with 6 twitching eyes and tentacles for hair leans into Han-Oh-El's personal space. Lilith acts totally offended, asking her, "Dear king," if her heart just isn't enough for him to be satisfied. Honestly, the way she's pouting with all those extra eyes is enough to give anyone nightmares for a week. Han-Oh-El's face drains of all color as he stares at the horror looming over him. Lilith aggressively promises to spend the night with him, and even though he orders her to stay back as her king, she just won't stop. It's official. The man who just decimated a demonic legion is now completely powerless against a very thirsty monster. A slimy, glowing purple tentacle wraps around Han-Oh-El's arm with a disgusting squelch. He lets out a scream of pure terror that echoes through the volcano, but the surrounding demons are actually blushing and squealing about how romantic it is. How messed up do you have to be to think this is an embarrassing and sweet love confession? Han-Oh-El begs her to go away, his spirit completely crushed as she continues to tower over him. The reality hits him like a truck. Lilith is the opposite of a beautiful lady, and she makes the terrifying bull boss Bollock look like a literal puppy. If he can't escape her now, what kind of night does she actually have planned for him? Han-Oh-El loses it internally, screaming that while looks aren't everything, Lilith is just way too much for any human to handle. He ignores the absurdity of the moment, his mind snapping back to the only thing that kept him sane, Earth. With a gaze that could pierce through steel, he declares that he is finally returning home. You can see the desperation and the relief warring in his eyes. He's done with this place, and nothing is going to stop him now. Lilith screams out for her fallen demon king, her voice echoing through the desolate, volcanic ruins in total despair. Han-Oh-El doesn't even flinch at her cries, because after 10,000 years, his resolve is a fortress that no one can break. He finally takes his seat on the massive, jagged throne of the realm he just conquered, looking completely exhausted. Think about that for a second. 10,000 years of constant war, and he's finally the one sitting at the top of the mountain. The shadowy armor on his shoulders begins to glow with an intense, rhythmic purple light as if it's breathing. His eyes flare up, radiating a power that feels like it's about to tear the very fabric of reality apart. This isn't just a victory lap. He's here to collect the ultimate rewards for surviving a literal eternity in hell. It's a chilling reminder that the person returning to Earth isn't the same man who fell into this pit. He's something much, much more dangerous. Han-Oh-El stares directly into the void, his voice dropping to a low, authoritative whisper as he says, "Prepare." The screen begins to fade to white, but his final words hang in the air like a heavy death sentence. He tells them to prepare that. My heart is actually racing right now. What kind of trump card has he been hiding for 10 millennia? Whatever that is, the world above is definitely not ready for the return of the true king of hell. A massive, red-skinned minotaur towers over Kongwu, but it's the beast that's shaking in its boots. Kongwu glares up with those piercing, glowing red eyes, asking if he really needs to repeat himself one more time. Honestly, seeing a literal monster of that size tremble like a scared puppy is terrifying. Balak immediately drops his head, sweating bullets as he begs for forgiveness from his king. It's wild, this demon looks like he could crush a skyscraper, yet he's absolutely terrified of the man standing in front of him. Panic suddenly erupts among the demonic ranks as they're ordered to prepare the way and call for Amon. Kongwu stands perfectly still in his spiked, purple-tinged armor, looking every bit the absolute ruler of this nightmare realm. He's clearly done with the 9 hells, and his subordinates are moving like their lives depend on it, because they probably do. You can really feel the weight of his authority here. Nobody dares to breathe the wrong way while the king is waiting. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. The atmosphere suddenly shifts as the world begins to fade into a deep, oppressive darkness. It feels like the very fabric of reality is starting to fray at the edges, heavy with the power of what's coming next. This is that moment where you realize there's no turning back for him. Everything he built in this place is about to be left behind. It's the kind of heavy silence that makes your ears ring before a storm hits. A gnarled, ancient shaman raises a staff topped with 3 screaming skulls, chanting words that feel like they're tearing the air apart. Behind him, 2 massive stone guardians channel their energy into a swirling vortex of pure, blinding white light. They're actually doing it. They're ripping a hole through the dimensions just to let one man through. The sheer scale of this magic is enough to make your skin crawl, but for Kongwu, it's just a doorway. He's been waiting years for this exact moment. Kongwu doesn't hesitate for a second as he turns his back on his empire and starts walking toward the rift. Lilith and Balak watch him go with a mix of genuine heartbreak and total, undying devotion. Demon Lord, they whisper, watching the man who conquered the impossible disappear into the white void. He's leaving his throne behind for a chance to be human again, but the real question is, what happens to Earth when a monster like this decides to move back in? Kangwu's jagged, glowing demonic armor pulses with a final, violet light before he finally sheds the weight of the Demon King. He walks shirtless up the cold stone steps toward the unknown, his muscular frame silhouetted against the dim, oppressive lights of the abyss. It's a heavy moment. He's literally walking away from absolute godhood and a throne of skulls. Honestly, seeing him leave all that power behind just to see a blue sky again tells you everything you need to know about his resolve. The legendary dark magician Amon waits at the precipice, warning Kongwu that warping the boundaries of space and time is a feat that defies the very laws of existence. Kangwu's gaze remains cold and unwavering, his sharp red eyes burning with a singular, terrifying obsession. Let's start, he commands, his voice steady even as the reality around them begins to tremble. He's waited 10,000 years for this single second, and he isn't about to let a little thing like dimensional collapse stand in his way. Violent, purple energy begins to swirl around Kangwu's feet, bubbling up like a sea of cosmic ink that threatens to swallow him whole. He screams out his desire to return home as his internal mana core begins to compress into a dense, vibrating point of pure power. The sheer pressure of his demonic energy is so intense it looks like it's liquefying the air itself. Seriously, the way his soul is being crushed and reshaped just to fit through the rift is hard to watch. It's a total, do-or-die, gamble. The energy condenses into a perfect, glowing orb that hangs suspended in the dark void, humming with the force of a dying star. Suddenly, a blinding white light swallows the entire frame, erasing the 9 hells from view as the ritual reaches its absolute climax. Then, with a deafening release, the core explodes in a supernova of mana, launching Kongwu through the fabric of dimensions. He's finally done it, he's broken out of the eternal prison. But as the light fades, the real question remains, what version of him is actually going to land on Earth, and will the world even recognize its new neighbor? A violent pillar of violet energy erupts from the ground, piercing the darkened sky of the 9 hells. Kongwu is finally detonating the 10,000 demon core, and the sheer pressure is making the very fabric of reality scream. One of his high-ranking subordinates, clad in bone-like armor, watches in total shock, gasping at the overwhelming demonic energy flooding the chamber. It's a terrifying sight, watching a man literally force his way out of a divine prison with nothing but raw, demonic willpower. The massive demon generals, including the powerhouse Balak, stand paralyzed as the ceiling starts to fracture under the weight of the mana. These are monsters that could level cities, yet they look like helpless statues, their eyes reflecting the violet storm swirling above them. A heavy, rhythmic thrumming vibrates through the floor, a sound that signals the world itself is about to break apart. Honestly, it's wild to see these legendary demons looking so small and vulnerable compared to their master's overwhelming ambition. The violet light intensifies until the entire throne room is swallowed by a blinding, jagged flash. Kangwu's silhouette stands tall amidst the shattering space, looking like a dark god carved out of the chaos. The gate is finally tearing open, and he knows this is his one and only shot to return to the world he's missed for 10,000 years. But as he prepares to jump, you have to wonder, can a soul that spent eternity in hell even survive the transition back to a place as soft as Earth? Flickers of a life long forgotten, his family, his friends, and the woman he once loved, surged through his mind like a desperate prayer. He grits his teeth, telling himself that as long as those people are waiting, any sacrifice is worth it. But as he steps into the white void, Lilith lets out a soul-crushing scream, her lavender horns trembling as she begs her king not to leave her behind. Her muffled, heartbreaking sobs are the last thing we hear before the portal snaps shut, leaving her alone in the dark. He's going home, but man, the look on her face makes this victory feel incredibly heavy. Is he returning to a warm welcome, or has the world he's fighting for already moved on without him? Balak's massive red face is soaked in tears as he clutches a weeping Lilith to his chest. They're absolutely broken, watching their master prepare to vanish into the rift and leave them behind in the dust. Seeing these two world-ending monsters cry like abandoned puppies is honestly kind of surreal. Kangwoo stares back at them, but instead of sadness, his face is twisted into a look of pure, sweat-drenched horror. Lilith is blushing harder than ever, convinced his departure is some legendary proof of his undying love for her. Man, her obsession is so deep she's literally hallucinating a romance that doesn't even exist. We get a close-up of Lilith's heaving chest while Kangwoo's bloodshot eyes look like they're about to pop from the stress. He is officially at his limit with these demonic subordinates and their terrifying, suffocating brand of loyalty. You can tell he'd rather fight an army of gods than spend one more minute with her. Kangwoo hurls himself into the portal with a final, echoing scream of "Fuck," and disappears into the light. But even as he flees, Lilith's voice bellows through the dimension, swearing she'll follow him to the ends of the universe. This isn't just a clean break, it feels like the start of a cosmic restraining order. Plummeting through the blue-white void, Kangwoo looks back at the closing rift and gives Hell a glorious, double-handed middle finger. He shouts at the top of his lungs that he didn't enjoy meeting any of them for even a single second. That is the ultimate way to leave a toxic workplace, and honestly, I am here for it. The world of demons fades into a silent, blinding white as the gravity of his journey finally sinks in. The screen reveals the heavy truth: he was trapped in that inferno for over 10,000 years. He's finally heading back to Earth, but after 10 millennia of slaughter and survival, is there even a home left for him to find, or has the world changed too much? A sleek blue holographic interface floats in the digital void as Kangwoo whispers a final prayer for a familiar horizon. He steps firmly onto the transport platform, finally accepting the reality that his 10,000-year exile is coming to an end. After surviving an eternity in hell, you'd be pretty anxious about the neighborhood changing too, right? Sudden electric arcs jump from the floor, scanning Kangwoo's body with a cold and terrifyingly mechanical precision. The Gaia system snaps to life, activating a dimensional defense mechanism to block his entry. Earth has clearly installed some serious security upgrades while he was gone, and it's not exactly rolling out the red carpet. A massive geometric cage of red lasers slams shut around him, trapping the Demon King in a high-tech digital prison. Multiple warning screens explode into existence, flashing crimson as they announce his power is literally shattering the system's safety limits. It's official. Kangwoo isn't just a visitor, he's a walking natural disaster that the world is trying to quarantine. Red smoke and data streams swirl violently as the Gaia system begins to overload from the sheer pressure of his demonic existence. Kangwoo is suddenly blasted by a massive surge of white-hot energy, forcing a guttural scream from his lungs as the reality around him fractures. This homecoming is turning into a total nightmare way faster than anyone expected. Blinding white light consumes the entire screen before revealing a pulsating, purple-pink nucleus that's desperately trying to process his soul. The system's logic finally breaks, admitting through a text prompt that totally eliminating the fissure he represents is an impossible task. If the Earth's defenses can't stop him from entering, they're going to have to find another way to neuter his strength. Kangwoo's hand shakes violently as he tries to force his way through the crushing weight of the digital suppression. He glares upward with eyes full of pure, demonic rage, calling out the system for being such a desperate, annoying tryhard. He's breaking through the gate by sheer force of will, but man, you have to wonder what's going to be left of his godlike powers once he actually hits the ground. The screen goes pitch black for a split second before exploding into a blinding, pure white light. Kangwoo's eyes snap open, and he's gasping for air like he's just been pulled from the depths of the ocean. He's lying flat on his back, feeling the soft, cool touch of grass beneath him for the first time in millennia. He looks up at a ceiling of vibrant green leaves and golden sunlight, his voice trembling as he asks, "Is this Earth?" It's a beautiful sight, but after what he just went through, it feels almost too good to be true. You can see the disbelief in his eyes. He actually made it. A sharp digital ping rings out as a purple status window materializes right in front of his face. Kangwoo's heart sinks as he reads the text, "Oh Kangwoo, level 1. His legendary authority of predation is still there, but it's grayed out with a brutal notification stating his powers have been sealed by the world's balance. The realization hits him like a freight train, and he can't help but let out a frustrated growl. My powers, they've been sealed. His eyes burn with a dark, intense rage, realizing the system didn't just stop him, it completely stripped him of his throne. Talk about a warm welcome home, he's literally gone from a god to a nobody in seconds. A terrifying, high-pitched "kaya ha ha ha" echoes through the woods, shattering the momentary silence. Kangwoo's gaze shifts instantly toward the source, spotting a group of grotesque, green-skinned goblins lurking in the shadows of the trees. His confusion turns into genuine shock because the earth he remembers didn't have man-eating monsters roaming the forests. He looks down at his interface again, staring at his pathetic stats: Strength 9, Dexterity 8, numbers that wouldn't have even registered as a rounding error to him yesterday. What is this? He mutters, his mind racing to figure out how much the world has changed while he was stuck in hell. He's weak, he's limited, and he's surrounded by creatures that shouldn't exist. But even if he's level 1, these goblins are about to find out that a corner demon king is still the most dangerous thing in the woods. Is he going to survive this first encounter, or has the earth become even more dangerous than the 9 hells? Kangwoo stares at the status window as a goblin's ear-splitting screech rips through the trees. He realizes his massive demonic power is almost entirely sealed away, leaving him annoyed enough to mutter a curse under his breath. Suddenly, a whole pack of the sickly green monsters emerges, cackling and brandishing crude weapons as they rush him. These things definitely didn't exist on Earth back in his day. It's pretty clear right now that the world he came back to is a lot more chaotic than the one he left behind. The title card slams onto the screen in vibrant, demonic red. This is the legend of the player who returned 10,000 years later, and the timer on Earth's peace just hit 0. It raises the ultimate question: can a man who ruled the 9 hells really humble himself to climb the ranks of a level 1 player? The stakes are already through the roof, and we're just getting started. Intense purple lightning starts dancing around Kangwoo's fingers as he prepares for his first move. He reaches deep into his 10,000 demon core, his right eye flashing with a cold, murderous red light as he focuses. Even with his power suppressed by the system, that demonic energy feels heavy, dark, and suffocating. It's just a tiny fragment of what he used to wield at his peak, but for a bunch of low-level goblins? Yeah, it's basically a death sentence. One of the goblins lunges through the air, screeching as it tries to bring a rusted blade down on his head. Kangwoo just stands his ground, clenching his fist while that dark purple aura begins to hum with terrifying pressure. He knows he has to make do with the scraps of power he's got left for now, but he doesn't look worried at all. It's honestly chilling how calm he stays while being surrounded by a pack of man-eaters. A horizontal blur of motion cuts through the forest air as Kangwoo activates the authority of the blade. The lead goblin is instantly silenced, its body getting shredded by an invisible strike before its feet can even touch the ground. A blue system window pops up to confirm he successfully eliminated an E-rank regular monster. He just took his first step back into the food chain, and it was effortless. But as more shadows move in the trees, you have to wonder, is he actually the one being hunted, or is he just getting started on his breakfast? Blue system windows flash across the screen as notifications ping one after another. Kangwoo watches his EXP bar surge, and in the blink of an eye, he's already hit level 4. It's a total power trip seeing him climb back up the food chain so fast. Man, he's basically speedrunning life right now. The forest floor is a literal graveyard, littered with the twisted, bloody remains of the goblin pack. Kangwoo stands in the center of the carnage, looking down at the green corpses with a cold, analytical stare. These things didn't stand a chance against a former demon king. Honestly, for him, this wasn't even a fight, it was a chore. Kangwoo takes a breath and looks around at the sun-dappled trees, his expression shifting to focus. He realizes he can't just wander aimlessly and decides he needs to extract some actual data about his surroundings. It's a smart move, but the total silence of the woods is starting to feel a little too heavy. A dark, swirling purple aura erupts from his hand as he activates his signature skill, Predation. He reaches out toward the fallen monsters, literally ripping the physiological information straight out of their dead bodies. That is a terrifyingly cool move, but you can see the intensity in his eyes. He's not just playing a game, he's hunting for a way home. A notification pops up confirming his demonic energy increased by a single point, but Kangwoo's face suddenly pales. He's searching for any trace of Earth's history or human civilization in their memories, and he's finding absolutely nothing. Wait, if these creatures don't know anything about humans, then where the hell is he? His eyes widen in genuine shock as a realization hits him like a freight train. He curses under his breath, his mind racing through the terrifying possibility that he's still in some corner of the 9 hells. If this isn't Earth, then all that sacrifice to escape was for nothing. You can practically feel the desperation starting to leak out of him. Kangwoo clutches his head, his face twisting into a mask of pure, raw panic. He grits his teeth, screaming internally that this cannot be happening after everything he went through. But just as he's about to spiral, a jagged, red sound effect shatters the air. Is that another monster, or did he just hear a human scream for help? Kangwoo freezes, his eyes widening as the sound of the scream echoes through the trees. He realizes instantly that this isn't the guttural roar of some hellish demon, it's a human voice. After 10,000 years of silence and monsters, the sound of another person is like a lightning bolt to his soul. Honestly, I'd be losing my mind too if I were in his shoes. A blue system notification flashes as he instantly activates Valifor's authority of speed. He launches himself forward like a literal rocket, blurring into a streak of light that shatters the ground beneath him. He spent 10,000 years waiting for this exact second. He isn't just running, he's chasing the only hope he has left. As he streaks through the forest, horrific flashes of hell's monsters, creatures covered in writhing tentacles and nightmare limbs, flood his mind. He remembers Lilith's obsessive, multi-eyed gaze and grits his teeth, praying to whatever gods are listening that he doesn't see another tentacle. It's honestly hilarious but also kind of tragic. His biggest trauma isn't the torture of hell, it's just how gross the monsters were. He bursts through the thick brush and finally spots the source, a pack of goblins cornering a terrified girl. The green-skinned monsters are snarling, closing in for the kill while she cowers against a massive tree. He's finally found them. But the crazy part is, he's not even checking if she's okay yet. He's busy doing a mental headcount of her limbs. Kanwoo zooms in on the girl's face, his eyes darting frantically to count her features. 2 eyes, and enro tentacles, he screams in his head, the realization hitting him like a tidal wave of relief. It's the most intense vibe check in history. Seriously, the man is more excited about her having 2 eyes than he is about actually being back on Earth. Kanwoo sprints toward the group, tears of pure, unadulterated joy streaming down his face as he howls at the top of his lungs. He looks like a total madman, but to him, this girl is the most beautiful thing he's seen in millennia just because she's normal. Those goblins have no idea that a literal demon king is about to crash their party. But with his powers sealed, can he actually take them all out? The goblins lunge forward with rusted blades, their red eyes glowing with pure malice. They're inches away from the purple-haired girl, who squeezes her eyes shut and waits for the cold bite of steel. It's a heart-wrenching sight as she completely gives up, her face pale with the realization that she's about to die alone in these woods. Honestly, seeing her so broken makes you realize just how cruel this new Earth has become. Kangwoo's face is a frantic mess of sweat and tears as he lets out a primal, guttural roar that shakes the trees. He's sprinting with every ounce of strength in his new body, howling at the top of his lungs because he finally found another person. He looks completely unhinged, like a predator hunting the goblins, but those tears are 100% real. Imagine being trapped in hell for 10,000 years. You'd probably look this crazy too if you finally saw a human face. The goblins screech in confusion at the sudden noise, while the girl just whimpers, bracing for the impact. She's paralyzed by fear, hearing the chaos but too terrified to look up. It's the ultimate moment of tension. The monsters are closing in, and her savior is still a few yards away. You have to wonder, even with his instincts, can a level 1 player actually bridge that gap in time? A massive spray of dark blood paints the grass as Kangwoo slams into the first goblin, crushing its skull instantly. He doesn't even use a weapon. He just uses raw, violent force to tear through the pack like they're made of cardboard. The "kihek" from the dying monster is the only sound that breaks the silence of his brutal efficiency. This isn't a fight, it's a one-sided execution by a man who has forgotten how to be merciful. The wide shot reveals the aftermath, with goblin corpses scattered across the clearing and blood staining the pristine forest floor. Kangwoo stands over the girl, his tattered cloak fluttering as the adrenaline slowly begins to recede. It's a hauntingly beautiful image, the carnage of his power contrasting with the peaceful sunlight filtering through the leaves. He actually did it. His first act back on Earth was saving a life. Kangwoo reaches out a hand, and the girl looks up with orange eyes wide in total shock, whispering a trembling, thank you. As she looks at him, a soft floral glow surrounds her, almost like the world itself is welcoming Kangwoo back home through her gratitude. A soft hand reaches out to touch Kangwoo's gloved palm against a backdrop of white lilies. After 10,000 years in the frozen desolation of hell, this simple human warmth is like a physical shock to his system. Kangwoo's eyes go wide, his face flushing a deep, panicked red as his brain completely short-circuits. He lets out a silent, internal scream that seems to vibrate through his entire soul. Talk about a total sensory overload for our legendary demon king. Seola looks up with teary, purple eyes, gripping his hand as she pours her heart out in gratitude. She introduces herself as Han Seola, her voice trembling but full of genuine kindness. The crazy part is, Kangwoo is literally vibrating with nerves, his hand shaking so hard it's visible. He's survived the most horrific monsters in existence, but a "thank you" from a girl, that might actually be the thing that kills him. Suddenly, something in Kangwoo snaps, and he lunges forward to grab her hand with both of his. In a massive speech bubble that drowns out the entire forest, he screams at the top of his lungs, "Let's get married." Seola just freezes, her brain completely stalling out as she utters a confused, high-pitched, "huh." But Kangwoo is too far gone, repeating the proposal with a face so red it's practically glowing. I know he's been alone for an eternity, but man, his social skills are absolutely cooked. Seola pulls back with a worried expression, while Kangwoo finally realizes he just made things incredibly awkward. He clears his throat, desperately trying to play it cool, and finally introduces himself properly as Oh Kangwoo. He manages to regain some composure and asks if her injury is okay, and for a heartbeat, the tension softens as she gives him a small smile. But the mood turns dark the second we see her leg. It's heavily bloodied and she's wobbling on her feet. This isn't just a scratch, she's in serious pain, and the danger isn't over yet. Can he actually protect her in this state? A sleek smartphone slips and tumbles onto the soft grass. Kangwoo stares at the device, his eyes widening as the realization finally hits him like a truck. This isn't some nightmare or a cruel illusion. This magic box is the final proof that he is officially back on Earth. Kangwoo kneels down and rips a long, clean strip of cloth from his own dark cloak. As he gently begins to bandage Seola's bleeding leg, he marvels at how naturally they're communicating in their mother tongue. The crazy part, he actually forced the high-ranking demons of hell to learn Korean just so he wouldn't forget his own language over 10,000 years. Now that is what I call a legendary long-term plan. He hands the device back to her with a surprisingly soft, human expression. But internally, his brain is going a mile a minute as he tries to reconcile the timeline of this new world. He calculates that only 5 years have passed on Earth during his absence, so how did his peaceful home turn into a monster-infested RPG? He's missing way too much information, and the world he knew is clearly gone. Seola rests against the trunk of a tree, finally catching her breath after the life-threatening chaos. She looks down in visible shame, admitting she was stupid for trying to solo hunt inside an E-rank gate without a party. You can tell just by her voice that some kind of desperation drove her to take a risk that almost cost her everything. Kangwoo casually asks about her power, and she reveals she's only a measly level 6. She looks up at this mysterious, terrifyingly strong man with total awe, wondering why a player of his caliber is wandering around a low-level zone like a ghost. As her face turns a deep, embarrassed shade of crimson, she quickly suggests they leave the forest before more monsters show up. But honestly, the real cliffhanger is, where does a former demon king even go to sleep in 2018? We see a close-up of Seola's leg, wrapped tight in bandages as she tries to find her footing. Kangwoo asks if she'll truly be okay, and while she winces in pain, she tries to put on a brave face, insisting she shouldn't cause him any more trouble. Honestly, she's being way too polite for someone who almost just died, but Kangwoo isn't having it. He bluntly tells her that refusing help in a situation like this isn't a virtue. It's actually pretty hilarious seeing a former demon king lecturing a girl on virtue with that subtle, calculated smirk on his face. The camera pulls back to a stunning wide shot of the sun-drenched forest as the two make their way through the towering trees. Kangwoo is deep in thought, practically grading his own performance, noting that he hasn't made any mistakes so far and that she doesn't suspect his true identity at all. He's dead set on adapting to this new Earth society, no matter what it takes to blend in. It's a chilling thought when you think about it. The most powerful being from hell is basically role-playing a nice guy just to secure a foothold in the human world. They finally reach what Seola calls the entrance, and Kangwoo's eyes go wide as he sees the reality of modern Earth. A massive, swirling blue rift of cosmic energy is embedded right into a giant tree, pulsing with a terrifyingly beautiful light. Kangwoo realizes that players move between worlds using these rifts, and he's genuinely baffled because there isn't a single piece of machinery making it happen. It's pure, natural magic. You can see the gears turning in his head. He's realizing the Earth he remembered is gone, replaced by a world of gates and monsters. Seola leans into him, her face flushing a deep pink as she holds his hand and tells him she's feeling much better now. Kangwoo just gives a short nod, guiding her toward the swirling vortex as they prepare to leave the gate and return to the city. They step together into the heart of the blue energy, and suddenly, the entire forest dissolves into a blinding, pure white flash of light. The real cliffhanger here is, when that light clears, is Kangwoo actually ready for the social hierarchy of a world that treats players like celebrities or soldiers? Kangwoo's crimson eyes dart around, scanning a crowd of humans and glowing digital terminals. He listens to the mundane chatter of people complaining about team composition and realizes there isn't a single monster or tentacle in sight. Reaction: after 10,000 years of literal hell, this boring city street is the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Honestly, I'd be staring just as hard as he is. Kangwoo stands frozen in the middle of a bustling square, clutching his chest tightly. The crushing weight of reality finally hits him, and he begins to sob uncontrollably while whispering that he's actually, finally home. Reaction: you can really feel the trauma of those 10,000 years just pouring out of him. It's a level of emotional relief that most of us can't even wrap our heads around. Seola looks at the weeping Kangwoo with a concerned, gentle expression while the city hums around them. She bows her head tentatively, offering him a warm meal at her house as a way to say thank you for saving her life back in the gate. Reaction: she's such a kind soul for reaching out like this, but you can tell she's also completely baffled by why this powerful warrior is suddenly such an emotional wreck. The background shifts into a soft, floral pink as Seola offers a small, grateful smile. She explains that she feels both sorry and grateful, and wants to repay him, making the air feel like a fresh spring day for the former demon king. Reaction: it's finally spring for Kangwoo, and for a second, it feels like his nightmare is over. But we all know that peace in a story like this is usually just the calm before a very loud storm. Two stern guards in black tactical gear step into the frame, blocking the pair from moving forward. They bark out a command to stop and demand their identification cards, leaving a panicked Seola stuttering while she tries to explain who Kangwoo is. Reaction: This is a massive problem. How is a guy who's been legally dead or missing for eons supposed to have a modern ID card? If he can't pass this security check, his peaceful homecoming is going to turn into a crime scene real fast. Kong-woo reaches into his cloak with a sneaky grin. Since he's technically a ghost in a legal system, he realizes he has to play dirty and use a forbidden skill to get past security. This isn't a simple distraction. He's calling on the power of Demon Dantalion to literally hijack the guard's perception. Seeing those ghoulish green hands cover the guard's eyes is honestly terrifying, but hey, it's better than starting a riot on his first day back. The guards stand there like empty shells while Kong-woo gives Seo-la the signal to keep moving. He plays it totally cool, but you can tell he's relieved his mental manipulation still works on modern humans. They finally pull up to a plain-looking apartment complex that Seo-la calls home. It's a bit rundown and doesn't even have an elevator, but for a guy who's been rotting in hell for 10,000 years, this place looks like a palace. Kong-woo pauses for a second, taking a deep breath of the scent in the hallway. He's actually blushing because the simple, musty smell of an old apartment feels more precious than anything he owned as the Demon King. As his gloved hand brushes against the freezing metal railing, it's like a jolt to his system. The realness of Earth is finally sinking in, and for the first time, he looks genuinely at peace. His heart starts thumping against his chest as they approach the front door. He's completely convinced that this is the start of a perfect, happy future, specifically because he's entering Seo-la's private world. It's kind of wild. The most powerful entity in existence is getting this hyped over a modest home and a warm welcome. But in this world of gates and hunters, can a Demon King ever really have a normal life? We're about to see if his happy future is just a dream before the nightmare starts. Oh, Kong-woo stands frozen as a gentle voice calls out, asking if Seo-la is back. The former Demon King of Hell literally stammers the word mom, looking like he's seeing a ghost for the first time in 10 millennia. It's wild. This man survived eons of slaughter and absolute solitude, but a simple mother's voice makes him crumble. Seo-la's mom appears, radiating a warmth that's almost blinding compared to the darkness Kong-woo is used to. Seriously, after the bleakness of the hellish soil, this domestic scene feels more alien to him than any monster he's ever fought. Seo-la introduces Kong-woo, explaining that he's the brave gentleman who saved her life when she was in danger. Kong-woo gives a stiff, polite bow, clearly trying his absolute best to remember how humans are supposed to act. But then, the mother grabs his hand with both of hers, thanking him so sincerely it actually catches him off guard. She ushers them into their small apartment, and the view of their modest home feels more welcoming than any palace Kong-woo conquered in the abyss. He lets out a soft smile, thinking that even if it's not a private moment with Seo-la, this warmth is already more than he ever dared to dream of. Can you imagine going from literal demons to this level of kindness? Seo-la heads off to change her clothes while her mom starts bustling around the kitchen to prep a meal. Kong-woo realizes he's essentially a caveman in this modern era and needs to figure out exactly what's happened to Earth during his absence. He politely asks to borrow a phone, and Seo-la hands over her smartphone before heading out, telling him to make himself at home. Watching him touch the screen is honestly kind of adorable. He's genuinely mesmerized by the feeling of the haptic feedback under his fingertip. But the wonder doesn't last long. He sits down, his expression turning sharp as he starts his research. He was dragged into hell 5 years ago in his own timeline, but he has no idea what year it is now or how much the gate phenomenon has ruined the world he once knew. If society has changed too much, his happy future might be over before it even begins. Kong-woo stares intently at the glowing smartphone screen in his hands. He begins searching for news from 2018, and the results describe a nightmare labeled, the Day of Calamity. It was the moment the world broke, with massive gates tearing the sky open and monsters massacring armies that stood no chance with modern firearms. Honestly, seeing that mother and child fleeing while the world burns, it really puts the scale of this horror into perspective. A silhouette of the world's first player from the USA flickers across various news feeds. Humanity was completely defenseless until these superhumans with glowing eyes emerged to fight back against the tide of monsters. But look at the contrast here. Kong-woo is just sitting quietly at a small dinner table, scrolling through history. It's crazy to think that while the world was building a new society of heroes, he was busy becoming the king of a literal nightmare. The phone screen displays a date that makes Kang-woo's blood run cold. February 22, 2018. He realizes that this Day of Calamity is the exact day he was dragged into the depths of hell. His personal tragedy wasn't just a random accident, it was the start of the global apocalypse. He's desperate to find more details, but the heavy atmosphere is suddenly broken when Seo-la calls out that the food is finally ready. Talk about a mood shift. 1 second he's uncovering the end of the world, the next he's being called for a home-cooked meal. Kang-woo's red iris practically bulges out of his head as he stares at the table. Sitting right there, steaming and vibrant, is a bubbling bowl of kimchi stew. To anyone else, it's just a simple lunch, but for a man who spent 10,000 years eating the literal dirt and guts of demons, this is a holy relic. Seo-la's mother watches him nervously, wondering if it'll be to his liking, while Kang Wu's hand actually trembles as he lifts the spoon. You can feel the sheer weight of this moment. He's about to taste the humanity he thought he'd lost forever. A steaming spoonful of rich, orange broth hangs in the air, captured in a moment of pure silence. Seola watches him with wide eyes, softly whispering the words, kimchi stew, as if it's a sacred prayer. You can feel the tension in the room. It's like the air is holding its breath just to see how a former demon king reacts to his first taste of home. Kang Wu doesn't just eat, he dives into that bowl like a man who hasn't seen light in a century. He's shoveling rice into his mouth so fast it's almost frantic, his throat working overtime as he swallows every single grain. The crazy part is seeing how such a powerful guy looks so vulnerable right now, treating a simple side dish like it's a miracle from the gods. We see Kang Wu's broad back hunched over the table, but the scene suddenly bleeds into a nightmare of red and black. He isn't thinking about the 5 years he was missing, he's remembering the 10,000 years he spent in the abyss. To survive that hell, he had to absorb demonic energy until he became something that wasn't even human anymore. Just look at him sitting on that mountain of corpses, that was his life. Bloody teeth tear into the cold, gray flesh of a demon as Kang Wu recalls the literal garbage he had to eat just to keep his heart beating. He describes the taste as absolutely foul, and we see him gagging, spitting out the remains of his prey onto the dirt. Honestly, it's a miracle he kept his sanity at all when his only options were eating monsters or starving to death. An extreme close-up shows a single, heavy tear forming in his eye as the weight of his journey finally crashes down on him. He spent every waking second of those 10,000 years with one singular, desperate thought, I want to return. Now, as those tears hit the floor of a real home, the reality finally sets in, he's back on Earth. But after everything he's become, can he actually live a normal life? Just when things seem peaceful, a new shadow is about to cross his path. Kang Wu's face is a complete mess of tears and snot as he chokes out a heavy sob. After 10,000 years of absolute hell, the simple warmth of a home-cooked meal breaks his soul wide open. Seola and her mother can only stare in pure shock, wondering why this powerful man is suddenly weeping over a bowl of rice. Honestly, it's heart-wrenching. Imagine holding it together for eons just to lose it over a side dish. Seola leans in with a soft, blushing smile, her eyes filled with a mix of pity and genuine warmth. She asks him through a gentle gaze if the food is really that delicious, clearly touched by how much he's enjoying it. Kang Wu doesn't even try to hide it anymore, nodding as the weight of being back on Earth finally feels real. It's such a wholesome moment, and you can tell Seola is starting to see him as more than just a mysterious stranger. Kang Wu begins vacuuming the food into his mouth, his cheeks puffed out like a squirrel while he mumbles out a sincere thank you. Seola's mother watches with a satisfied hum, happy to see her cooking appreciated, while Seola stands nearby holding a small bag. The atmosphere is finally peaceful, almost like a normal family dinner, until a massive red exclamation point shatters the silence. You just knew this calm wasn't going to last, right? The front door suddenly explodes inward in a cloud of splinters and thick gray smoke. A shadow looms through the dust as a foot slams onto the wreckage, belonging to an arrogant blonde guy with a cross necklace and a look of pure entitlement. He starts screaming at the top of his lungs for them to get out there right now, completely ruining the first moment of peace Kang Wu has had in millennia. This guy is officially the biggest idiot on the planet. He has no idea he just interrupted the Demon King's dinner, and something tells me he's about to pay for that door in blood. What is this guy's deal, and is Kang Wu going to keep his normal human act up or let the monster out? The blonde guy leans in close, screaming at Seola for entering a gate on her own. This is Han Tae-hyun, and he's clearly used to throwing his weight around and bullying the weak. Seola isn't backing down though, looking him dead in the eye and demanding he get out of her home. Seriously, this guy's ego is through the roof. Taehyun makes a twisted, terrifying face as Seola warns him that she's a full-fledged player now. Instead of being intimidated, the guy just bursts into this disgusting, mocking laughter that fills the room. He treats her hard work like it's a complete joke. It's honestly hard to listen to him talk down to her like this. A fist smashes into the wall right next to Seola's head, sending cracks through the plaster. Taehyun is using pure physical intimidation to shut her up while her mother watches, trembling in horror. He looks down on them with a gaze of pure malice. The tension here is thick enough to cut with a knife. He's completely lost it. Taehyun sneers at her, mocking her dead father and insulting her mother for working so hard just to earn peanuts. He demands she stop acting out and follow him to the Andras Guild immediately. This guy is a total bottom feeder, targeting her family's trauma just to break her spirit. Is there no limit to how low he'll go? Taehyun grabs her arm and starts dragging her, while Seola struggles and screams that she'll never join a trash guild like his. He leans in close, calling himself Appa in the creepiest way possible before suddenly swinging his hand and slapping her across the face. He actually did it. He just struck her in front of her mother. But here's the thing. Taehyun has no idea that the former Demon King of Hell is sitting just a few feet away. He just made the biggest mistake of his life, and something tells me Kang Wu isn't going to let him leave this house in one piece. What is the Demon King going to do to him? Seola collapses to the cold floor as her mother screams her name in absolute terror. This piece of work, Han Tae-hyun, is actually losing his mind just because Seola tried to be a good person. He's standing there gritting his teeth, looking like a total psycho while acting like he's the victim. Seriously, how delusional can one guy get? Taehyun looms over the family with glowing eyes, mocking them for being full-fledged players. He demands that Kangwoo face him for real, completely ignoring the mother's desperate pleas for mercy. It's honestly sickening to watch him flex his magic on people who can't even defend themselves. Does he really think he can survive what's coming next? The mother clings to Taehyun's leg, begging him to leave her daughter alone. Instead of showing an ounce of humanity, he calls her annoying garbage and winds up a massive kick. He actually follows through, striking an innocent woman right in front of her child. My blood is actually boiling right now. A sickening thud echoes through the room as the mother is sent flying, clutching her stomach in pain. Seola rushes to her side, screaming in pure agony while Taehyun just stands there, cold and indifferent. He's telling them they should have just moved. Man, he has no idea what kind of monster he just woke up. Taehyun's face twists into a sneer as he demands why they're being so annoying. He's stepping over the injured mother to mock Seola while she's trembling on the floor. Honestly, this guy's ego is completely out of control. He even calls her a low-leveled scrub with zero remorse. Is he really going to lay hands on her too? A crazed grin spreads across Taehyun's face as he brags about being a second-stage awakener. He leans in close, looming over them with a terrifying, predatory look in his eyes. Then, he actually grabs Seola by the face, sneering that her pretty face is her only asset. It's genuinely sickening to watch. You just know something is about to snap, but the question is, what? A loud, aggressive slurping sound suddenly cuts through the heavy tension. Kangwoo is just sitting there, ignoring the life and death drama to finish every last drop of the kimchi jjigae. Taehyun is completely baffled, frozen mid-insult with a look of pure confusion. Why is he eating right now? This meal was sacred to him, and he isn't letting a single drop go to waste before he turns this room into a graveyard. Taehyun laughs hysterically while Seola watches him in pure confusion. He mocks Kangwoo's frantic eating, thinking it's a joke that someone would ignore a threat for a bowl of soup. Honestly, the sheer audacity of this bully is reaching peak levels of about to find out. Kangwoo continues slurping his soup, completely tuned out of the life-or-death situation. Taehyun keeps barking orders, but Kangwoo just finishes the last drop with a deeply satisfied hum. He's trying to savor his first real meal in millennia, but Taehyun's patience has officially hit zero. Taehyun explodes in rage and kicks the table with a violent blue flame blast. The sacred kimchi jjigae is sent flying into the air, splashing red broth everywhere as Seola screams in horror. He actually did it. He destroyed the one thing Kangwoo truly cherished. The red soup drips down Kangwoo's face as his eyes glow with a terrifying, demonic light. He lets out a primal, heartbroken scream for his ruined meal that literally shakes the entire room. This isn't just a fight anymore, it's a one-way ticket to a funeral. Kangwoo collapses on the floor, weeping over the spilled soup while Taehyun looks down with a sneer. The bully actually has the nerve to call him a beggar and kick him, telling him to stop acting like a child and get up. Honestly, Taehyun has no idea he's poking a sleeping god of death. Is he really that dense? Kangwoo's eyes snap open, glowing a lethal, demonic red as he mutters a low, vibrating warning about his ruined meal. Taehyun's smug face instantly pales as a towering, jagged shadow of pure malice erupts behind the MC. You can see the exact moment the bully's heart drops. That pressure, it's absolutely suffocating. Kangwoo looms over the golden-haired jerk like a living nightmare, his voice dropping to a terrifying growl as he demands how Taehyun dared to touch his stew. Taehyun is paralyzed, stuttering out the word demon as the room is swallowed by a dark, violet aura. Suddenly, a massive fist charged with overwhelming power slams forward. This isn't a fight anymore, it's a total execution. But the real question is, how much of this house will even be left standing once Kangwoo lets loose? Taehyun stands tall, his hands wreathed in flickering blue elemental fire. He tries to convince himself that Kangwoo's demonic pressure was just a trick of the light, even calling him a crazy hobo to mask his fear. Honestly, the audacity of this guy is just unbelievable. A blinding flash of energy erupts as the title card, player who returned 10,000 years later, slams onto the screen. Kangwoo moves with a speed that defies human logic, leaving Taehyun stumbling back and gasping in pure confusion. He's realized way too late, he's not the predator in this room. Seola watches with tear-filled eyes, screaming for Kangwoo to stop and run away. She's terrified that he'll get hurt, or worse, that he's becoming something she won't recognize anymore. It's genuinely heartbreaking to see her this desperate for his safety. Taehyun is sent crashing into the floor, his face twisted in a mixture of agony and disbelief. He's still trying to act tough, cursing under his breath, but his body is already failing him. Now that the gloves are off, how much longer can this bully survive the Demon King's cold-blooded wrath? Taehyun's eyes widen as Kangwoo blurs into a predatory motion. He thinks he can track the movement, calling Kangwoo slow, but his left side is left completely exposed. It turns out that first move was just a fake, and by the time Taehyun realizes it, the trap is already sprung. Man, this guy really thought he was even in the same league. Taehyun gags, saliva flying as a brutal blow connects squarely with his midsection. He's doubling over, his mind racing to process how a normal person could hit with this much concentrated force. It's not just physical strength, it's pure, refined malice. You can see the fear finally starting to override his pathetic ego. The bully tries to swing back with a desperate, blue flame punch, screaming curses. Kangwoo doesn't even flinch, meeting the attack with a heavy kick that sends Taehyun reeling backward. Another crushing punch lands right in his ribs, and that Andres Guild tough guy act is officially dead. Honestly, watching him get humbled like this is beyond satisfying. Kangwoo closes the distance again, his silhouette looking more like a demon than a human. The bully is literally breaking, finally admitting to himself that this power is beyond anything he's ever witnessed. One more explosive strike sends Taehyun screaming across the room as Kangwoo repositions for the kill. Is there anyone left who can actually stop the Demon King from ending this right here? A bloody-nosed Taehyun screams in rage as Kangwoo moves like a blur. The bully fires a desperate burst of blue flames, but he's just swinging at thin air and hitting empty afterimages. He realizes he's been tricked again just as a heavy fist cracks against his jaw. It's honestly embarrassing how easily Kangwoo is playing with him. Taehyun collapses onto the floor, gasping for air amidst the rising dust. He looks up at the dark silhouette looming over him, finally asking who, or what, this monster actually is. Kangwoo doesn't answer with words, instead grabbing the bully and slamming his head back into the ground with bone-chilling force. Yeah, the power gap here is just terrifying. Kangwoo stares down at the broken man and coldly mutters that it's not over yet. He tells the sobbing mess to stop overreacting, his eyes shifting into a piercing, demonic magenta glow. There is still a massive debt to be paid for that ruined kimchi jjigae and the hand he laid on Seola. Can Taehyun's body even survive the next 10 seconds of this nightmare? Taehyun's mangled face twitches as he gasps, asking if all this is really just for some stew. Kangwoo's grip tightens on the bully's hair, his demonic aura flaring dangerously at the word just. You can see the pure terror in Taehyun's eyes as he finally realizes he didn't just pick a fight with a player, he provoked a monster. Seriously, never disrespect a man's home-cooked meal. A massive shockwave of dark energy erupts as Kangwoo bellows the name of the ruined dish in a fit of rage. The entire room trembles under the weight of his psychological pressure, leaving Taehyun paralyzed and sobbing on the floor. It's not a fight anymore, it's an effortless execution of the spirit. He's honestly lucky his head is still attached to his shoulders. Kangwoo leans in close, tapping the bully's head with a chillingly calm, "Hey." He begins a twisted lesson, telling the broken man that when he says, 1, Taehyun must shout that kimchi stew is sacred. The power gap is so wide it's actually sickening to watch. This is how you handle a bully who thinks he's at the top of the food chain. Taehyun screams through a mess of blood and tears, desperately wailing the words just to stay alive. Kangwoo stares him down with glowing white eyes, coldly prompting for the second half of his sacred chant. The guy is completely shattered, sobbing like a child under the Demon King's shadow. But wait, how much further is Kangwoo going to take this ritual? Kangwoo looms like a literal nightmare over the blonde bully. Taehyun wails about the sacred existence through his tears, but Kangwoo isn't satisfied, pinning him to the floor and barking for him to go even louder. The power gap here is honestly just uncomfortable to watch. The camera pans over the spilled stew as Kangwoo demands the passion of a believer or a man in love. Seola watches from the background, looking completely stunned by this bizarre, terrifying interrogation. I mean, can you blame her? Her protector is acting like a total maniac over soup. Kangwoo's face contorts into a demonic snarl as he screams for a burning passion. A broken, bloody Taehyun desperately shrieks that the stew is sacred, basically sobbing for his life with every breath. This isn't even a fight anymore, it's a psychological execution. Kangwoo leans in close, snapping that the current energy is still all wrong. He bellows for Taehyun to raise his voice to the next octave, his aura turning the entire room into a pitch-black void. You have to wonder, is there any part of Taehyun's sanity left to break? Taehyun's face is a complete disaster, swollen and leaking blood from every orifice. Kangwoo is literally forcing him to scream praise for the ruined meal at the top of his lungs. The bully bellows that kimchi stew is a sacred existence, his voice cracking under the sheer weight of his terror. It's a total mental collapse for the supposed elite hunter. Honestly, he's lucky to be alive. Kangwoo leans over the shivering wreck of a man, his dark shadow swallowing the entire room. He inspects the damage with cold indifference while Taehyun can only let out pathetic, high-pitched whimpers. Look at the presence Kangwoo has here, he doesn't even look human, just a mountain of pure, suffocating power. The gap between them isn't just big, it's a bottomless abyss. Kangwoo's eyes glow a demonic, piercing red as he delivers a chilling final warning. He tells Taehyun to never look down on kimchi stew again, leaving the hero sobbing in a pool of his own blood and shattered pride. Taehyun is left broken, wondering what kind of monster he just unleashed. But the real question is, what happens when the rest of the world realizes the Demon King is finally home?